WomenHeart, and we're a 25-year-old organization, so we've got over 1,000 women around the US who are trained. Every single one has a story of not being believed, of having delays in diagnosis. And I can even add my own experience to that. I went through 9 visits to the emergency department over the course of 2 years before I finally convinced a cardiologist to give me the appropriate diagnostic test to finally diagnose me on my birthday last year. So, you know, this is not in our heads, even though I'm sure at some point you said to yourself, I must be anxious. What we know about the developing world is that the cardiovascular rates are much higher. Interestingly, while they're higher, for example, and they have increased in places like India and China, their death rates aren't as high as other parts of the world. So, you know, we've got to make that distinction between cardiovascular disease prevalence and mortality due to cardiovascular disease. I think about this in 2 ways. One, Mariel and Neil addressed, which is around representation of women, not just as cardiologists. In the US right now, 14% of cardiologists are women. We also need to increase the number of principal investigators and lead scientists in research who are women. But we also, I want to make sure that we are not, what do they say, cutting off our nose to spite our face by discouraging men who can be and are just as passionate about this work. Hopefully one day requiring that 50% of participants are women in trials. That should absolutely be done. And also making the research trial experience women-friendly. Right? And not just in providing transport, but also thinking about trials as an emotional journey. I mean, there's a lot of apprehension that goes into thinking about it, and then you know, enabling those participants to talk to their peers, I think, is also a really, you know, interesting and important intervention that can sort of complement research that's happening out there. But gender-specific research is fundamental, I think, to our understanding. And my hope is that one day we don't talk about symptoms of heart disease in women as uncommon. Yeah. They're just symptoms in women versus symptoms in men. That, like, I want us to get to that place, right? This idea that I have something called endothelial dysfunction and coronary artery vasospasm, and they say that's a hard diagnosis. It's really hard to diagnose that. It's really uncommon. No, we are going to find out that it happens more often in women, and that's the only reason they call it uncommon, because so much of what we know about heart disease we've learned from men, right? So I want us to rethink how our language even. It's not uncommon, it's just that we haven't studied it enough, and when we do study enough, we're going to realize that these uncommon diagnoses are actually just more common in women.